And you take care of it. If you provide the right balance of nutrients, the right harmony in a plant, it's going to be healthier, stronger, it's going to do better just because of that. It's going to do more to fight off pests. It's going to do more to ward off funguses and infections of that nature. It's going to grow faster, so it's going to do more to shade off and compete for the water that weeds might grow up amongst it. To reduce the amount of herbicides we have. All these things because of plants in balance. Just like we're healthier if we're in balance. Almost another topic for another day. But keep in mind, too, we talked about this antifreeze concept. And without going back through it, we understand that this electron hyperactivity essentially keeps the energy level up in the plant, and it's able to withstand cooler temperatures. What does that mean globally? Well, you know, folks, for instance, you can only grow fruits. Let's talk about oranges, fig, lemons, citrus. What happens if you grow them in, let's just say, New Jersey, where my company is? Well, first of all, you'd be doing it every year because the plant would die in the winter. So how are you going to get production? Many of you know it takes a little bit of time to get a tree to size. It can support weight. It can grow. It can handle the whole mechanization of picking, growth, harvesting. Well, you couldn't do that. But what if we could? I don't want to step on anybody's toes here. But what if we could inch our way up in the zones of hardiness so that we could grow some of these other crops in let's say, cooler climates? Could we grow apples up in and through Canada? Could we grow soybeans and corn and some of the short season products, sweet corn, up into some of the other areas? Could we kind of help with the heat tolerance of some plants, that we could push them down in some of the more tropic environments? Perfect Science is here to tell you we can now do that. We call it antifreeze. And I don't like that word antifreeze, but it's one we can all understand. You put antifreeze in your car. So if you're parked in Manitoba or Saskatchewan and it's 20 below, at least it's a prayer that your car is going to start. It hasn't frozen up. Well, I don't know, I like the word antifreeze, but at least it's one that kind of gives you the feeling that you can avoid some of those fluctuations in frost. Now, you orange growers out there, what would that mean if you could survive some of those colder temperatures without having to fire up those smudge pots or get those irrigation systems overhead going? Remember, water conservation, drought emergencies. You're all getting some rain. We're in a major drought up north, major drought. We've had a 3-year drought going. So already governors and DEP are all getting together and saying, hey, can't wash your cars, can't water those yards, hold up, 50 gallons a day per person in your house. Now, as farmers, we have a little bit of a break. And yes, as a major nursery and a greenhouse up there, yeah, I have a break. I've got wells. But you know, at some point in time, all of this goes to aquifers, planetary, water availability. And let's face it, at some point in time, somebody's going to say, I need a drink more than I need a shower or need to water my lawn or water my plant. But we all know we're in food production, or those of us that are in food production, recognize that if we don't get a crop, if we don't get those strawberries, or those watermelons, or those soybeans, or those citrus harvested, how do we feed our families? How do we buy the seeds or the fertilizer, whatever it is we need for next year? So water becomes a huge issue. So if we can stop some of your use of smudge pots or chemical fires or irrigation or whatever it is you're using to warm up those orchards, remember, we don't need a lot of degree differential. We need some. What can we do if we can eliminate or reduce that for you? Is there economic gains there? I think there is. What is Blossom? If you could all turn to your sheets, which hopefully you have in your little packet, and Jim, I'm happy to tell you that you never gave me mine back. Could you send mine up here for a second? I just want to call your attention. Oh, I got it. Thank you. I just want to call your attention to the fact that Blossom, we call it the complete fertilizer. And the reason it's complete is because unlike some of the ingredients that you buy, maybe you're using 5-10-5. Maybe you're using a specific tomato food. And again, there's all numbers all over the map. We're not going to go into that. You all are smart enough to be able to read the label and say, here's what it is. But the idea being is that this is a complete fertilizer. Remember, we talked about highly organic. We'll talk about that in a second. Highly organic. We talked about balancing plants. We talked about the idea of supplemental plant growth. Let's look at what specifically, is on this. The analysis of the plants. Well, you're seeing that 30% of the nitrogen is coming through organic compounds, readily available for the plant. That means the day you put it on, it's there, it's ready. But Randall, I got to have something that's there in a week. Something there's 10 days. I get 3 days of rain and that's washed that organic away. The only inorganic part of this whole affair is what you see is urea nitrogen 11.5% of the total nitrogen. That means you're talking about a 41.5% nitrogen in there. Notice the next compound, phosphorus. It's an organic source, 6.5%. Notice the next product that's on here. And again, follow with me if you would please. Potassium, an organic material process of potassium, 7.5%. What we're seeing in there is a rather interesting mixture, numbers as you will, of how the nitrogen relates to the phosphorus and potassium. And of course we know that nitrogen is that greening agent. It's great for growth. It promotes and stimulates. It adds some values in there, particularly if you're talking about a hay. You want high cellulose content. You want some growth. You want tonnage. If you're talking about corn for silage or hay for harvesting, etc., etc. We want some nitrogen that's going to be around for the plant to use. I don't care how cheap it is. You can't afford mechanically to go out there every other day and spray something on there. Even if you're a homeowner, how would you do that? Randall works 60 plus hours a week. I don't know what you work, but probably 40 anyway. Okay, I see some hands shaking their heads no higher. Okay, well that's fine. But the point I'm saying is you can't be out there every day. We've got some urea in there to add for the extended nitrogen release. We all know some benefits of that. It's a very good one. We've increased phosphorus. We know phosphorus. Root growth, bloom. Again, what does that number mean? Randall, there's Super Blossom Booster out there by a product I won't mention. 5, 30, 5. 10, 60, 10. Wow, that phosphorus is high. I maintain if you're in the citrus business, you're in the apple business, or you're in something perennials, something other than the immediacy of a harvest and annual. Wheat's an annual, a marigold crop, a geranium crop is an annual. You want to deal with the life of the plant. If you pump the phosphorus so high on these plants, you quote-unquote burn them out, it's like an athlete taking steroids. And we all know what happens to them, besides getting kicked out of the games. The idea is they burn themselves out. Well, you don't want those long-term plants burning themselves out, but you do certainly want to increase growth. Potassium, stem strength, bloom, you want all that in there, but you want it in the right balance. Notice the next one, the next word which I've capitalized, says enzymes. Now, enzymes, as we all know, enzymes are like a catalyst. Speeds reactions up. There's the perfect science water. That's what's creating the electron hyperactivity. That's what it is. It's water. It's water. However, we know that combined with all the minerals and the vitamins and all the things you see below that. By the way, notice that the iron and the zinc are both chelated. Notice the fact that there's a fairly significant amount, we put it on the label, of boron, those, and magnesium oxide. Those are some of the micronutrients that are missing. But when you put them in the presence of the enzymes, the plant can take it in. The activities within the plant, biosynthesis, cranks up. Photosynthesis is now working at a high level. All things are going, hence rapid growth, stem strength, increased flower production, increased fruiting, increased yield, bigger product. What would you do if you had a watermelon this big? How would you get that to the market? I haven't been able to figure that one out yet, but if any of you grow watermelons out there, and I talked the other week with a major group of people that grow watermelons in Southern California, whew, that's an issue. But I have a feeling we'll figure that one out too. In any case, the bottom line is, here's a complete fertilizer ready for activity. Ready to put down, ready to go on. Now, I want to understand something here is that perfect science is not into killing things. So consequently, if you do have an aphid infestation that comes into your tomatoes, or you've got leaf hopper that hits your beans, or you've got blight that hits your soybeans, what have you, rust that affects your wheat. Oh, that's right, we don't have a lot of wheat growth. Bear with me. The idea being is that if you've got diseases, we want to help you manage those diseases. Perfect Blossom, Super Blossom by Perfect Science, is going to help you increase the plant's ability to work in harmony, to work in strength, to work out of a healthy situation. As we all know, even our human bodies, as frail as we are in the face of nature, if we're healthy, if we're eating right, if we're strong, we're fending off the influenza bug that's going around. We're fighting off the sore throats and the sniffles that maybe some of your staff or your family may have that aren't as physically strong as maybe we all are. If you take the water and drink it, you'll find that it's even more. But the bottom line is, we know that by using Super Blossom, your plants are going to be healthier. So they're going to naturally fend off more of the insect problems. They're going to fight off more of the natural diseases and fungus problems that we're talking about. That's huge. That's huge. What does it also mean? It also means if they're healthy and they do get a touch of a problem, Ounce of prevention, pound of cure. If you catch these things early, if the plant's more ready to accept, a healthy body is ready to accept the medicines you may give it, reacts quicker, takes less to fight off whatever it is. If your crop is that same way, you've put less out. Now let me see, Randall, I'm putting less pesticides on my crops this year. It means I spent less time running around the field with booms in the case of orchards. I spent less time side dressing in the case of some of the marathons and some of those things, you may put on. I spent less money on chemicals, less money in mechanization, less money in fuel to run that tractor, less soil compaction, less time spent. Does anybody golf? Does a farmer golf? Maybe we could actually, I don't think so, but you've got some beautiful courses down here. The bottom line is you have more time, whether you spend it with your family, reading up on current economic things, figuring a better way to market all this extra product you're going to have. Whatever it is, you're going to have more time. You're going to have less money spent. Is that a bad thing? I think not. I think not. So all these things can happen. Now, how do we put blossom on our crops? Well, we talked about the fact that it was a water soluble. We're going to take a product, I'll use just this because it's simple to hold up. We're going to take this 4 ounce, and we're going to look at our dilution sheet in a minute, and we're going to put a certain amount of this into a larger amount of water. We're going to put this in first, then we're going to put the water, spring water on top of that, or in the case of the big numbers, regular water. We're going to put that in on top, and we're going to mix it in a tank, 1,000-gallon spray tank. You have a 250-gallon tank, thank you, sir. 250 gallons. We're going to mix that, and we're going to go down through our orchards, spraying our booms, just like we ordinarily would. Okay, you want to add some other thing into it. Perfect Science has done a lot of testing with a lot of other products. But you can do some simple on-the-farm tests to make sure. If you have a doubt, contact us. But the idea is there's a mixability in this. It talks about a little bit on the label itself as to what you can and what you can't. But the idea is a water-delivered product. So you can put other things in there. Okay, you want to put some Captan in there. Fine, put it in there, mix it up. If it's wettable, you might pre-mix and do it in water and dump that in, and etc. You know the management techniques of that. But the concept is you take this, you put it in your tank, you add the water, you put else in, and you merrily go down the row, spraying, 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 like you would on a normal basis. However, we're feeding a couple of ways. Those of you who want to feed your vegetable garden, well, you're probably going to hook a hose-end sprayer and you're going to water your plants. And some of that's going to go to the base of the plant. Those of you in the citrus business aren't going to go out, or you have orchards or beans, you're not going to go out there and necessarily water the bottom of the plant. You're kind of putting a foliar feeding on, aren't you? Yeah, okay. Heads are turning. Yes, that's what you're doing. You're putting it up there. Leaves do. Runoff does go into the soil, goes down through the roots. Now, are you putting tons and tons and volumes of water in there to drench those trees? No. You're getting major league coverage. In fact, without jumping ahead too far, I'm going to tell you in a minute that you're going to use an incredibly low amount of product to put into these fields to get this kind of a production out of where you're going. But, for the purposes. So you're going to use it in a boom and you're going to spray the plants. Remember, we talked about the mixability. That's huge. Let's talk a minute, since we've bounced around this a few times, about the application rates. I've referred you to, or asked you to turn to, the area in your handouts where you actually have some of the specifics and the charts on that. I also want to, before we get into that too much, I want to mention that since we designed this product to be an organically rich nutrient solution to increase the yields and to work with these enzymes, there are some cautions that we want to throw out. Randall, I thought you said this was environmentally friendly. Randall, I thought you said I didn't have to necessarily be all suited and gloved up and have a respirator on. Well, that's right. But what I want you to understand is, and I'll use the big bottle, when you're working with something at this level that's going to get reduced or diluted 500 times, 1,000 times, needless to say, there's a certain amount of this that you need to worry about. Do you want it in your eyes? No. Do you want to take a big slug of it? No. Do you want to wash your hands in it? No. You want to use some preliminary, elementary type precautions. Sanitary use of pesticides on the farm 101. You want to use it. The good news is that when you get it mixed, concentrate's one thing. It's the lowest toxicity level the USDA allows on this. When it's mixed, when it's in your spray tank, in your hand pump sprayer, in your watering can if you're going to go out and hand water your roses, whatever it is. It's at such a level